Overview of Entity Bean Runtime Execution Model in Jakarta Enterprise Beans or EJB. Here you can see a overview of the Entity Bean Runtime Execution Model. The subscreen describes the runtime model and the classes used in the description of the contract between an entity bean and its container. This shows an overview of the runtime model. The client of an entity bean may be a client or maybe a local client, or it may be a remote client. An enterprise bean is an object whose class is provided by the bean provider. The class of the entity bean with container managed persistent is abstract. The concrete bean class is generated by the containers providers tools at the deployment time. The container is also responsible for providing the implementation of the java.util.collection classes that are used in the maintaining the container managed relationships of the entity bean. An entity EJB object or EJB local object is an object whose class was generated at the deployment time by the container providers tools. A client never references an entity bean instance directly. A client always references an entity bean and an entity EJB object or EJB local object whose class is generated by the container provider tools. The entity object class implements an entity bean's remote interface. The entity local object class implements an entity bean's local interface. A related entity bean never references another entity bean instance directly. A related entity bean, like any other local client of an entity bean, always references an entity EJB local object whose class is generated by the container providers tools. An entity EJB home or EJB local home object provides lifecycle operations, create, find, remove for its entity object, as well as home business methods, which are business methods that are not specific to an entity bean instance. The class for the entity EJB home or EJB local home object is generated by the container providers tools at runtime, tools at deployment time. An entity EJB home or EJB local home object implements entity bean's remote or local home interface that was defined by the bean provider. Here, interface EJB object. The EJB object interface is extended by all enterprise beans remote interfaces. An enterprise bean's remote interface provides the remote client view of an enterprise bean object. An enterprise bean's remote interface defines the business methods callable by remote client. Interface EJB home. The EJB home interface must be extended by all enterprise beans remote home interfaces. An enterprise beans remote home interface defines the methods that allow a remote client to create, find and remove enterprise bean objects. Interface EJB local home object. EJB local object interface must be extended by all the enterprise beans local interfaces. An enterprise beans local interface provides the local client view of an enterprise bean object. An enterprise beans local interface defines the business methods callable by local clients. the interface EJB local home. The EJB local home interface must be extended by all enterprise beans local home interfaces, and enterprise beans local home interface defines the method that allow local clients to create, find, and remove enterprise bean objects. Here you can see a client is connected to EJB object and EJB home. Here EJB objects and EJB home interacts with the container and enterprise bean here, and EJB objects and EJB home are connected to enterprise bean instances here. Here the client is connected to EJB local home, EJB local objects, and EJB local home. EJB local objects and EJB local home interacts with container and enterprise bean 2 here. EJB local objects and EJB local home are connected to enterprise bean instances here. Here the enterprise bean is assigned in enterprise bean 1 and enterprise bean is assigned in enterprise bean 2. Here the this section enterprise bean 1 and enterprise bean 2 are in the container. Here this section EJB object, EJB home, EJB local object, EJB local home are container provided classes, and here the enterprise bean instances. Here are classes and this in this section classes provided by bean provider and container here. Now this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for watching it.